Good evening, families. My name is Mr. Riccardi. I am the English 3-4 honors teacher for sophomore year. So a little bit about me. I'm actually an alum of St. Mary's, class of 2007. I got my bachelor's at Occidental College in Religious Studies, and then I went on to get my master's at St. John's College in Eastern Classical Literature. Before St. Mary's, I spent 3 years at West Contra Costa School District as a substitute and a teacher at Richmond High, before moving on to St. Mary's, where I've been here for 6 years. Outside of my teaching duties, I'm also part of the Inclusive Community and Celebrating Cultures and Traditions Club moderator. So a little bit about the course. This is a world literature class, so we'll be kind of looking at different texts through from Africa, from Latin America, some small texts from Asia, and some texts from Europe. And the idea is to look at them through a critical lens, an analytical lens, but more importantly, investigating kind of the cultural, historical, and literary significance of each text. The goal here is to obviously improve comprehension skills, critical analysis skills, composition skills, and most importantly, at least in my perspective, a deeper understanding of ourselves and our world through this global perspective. So some objectives here, obviously developing our core knowledge, literary concepts, vocabulary, studying these texts, and obviously developing the practice of critically reading and analyzing the texts. Written and oral communication skills are very important. Academic communication through the written word and essays and small reflective writing, as well as communication in Socratic seminars and formal discussions that we'll be having in relation to the texts. Listening skills is kind of a softer skill that we're going to be developing. Of course, in discussion, it's important to be able to listen to what other people's perspectives are and then be able to add on to it or disagree with it, whatever. But listening skills is going to be a significant part of our discussion element and how we interact with each other, especially with different perspectives. And then lastly is this deeper sense of critical thinking and critical analysis, looking at the text and taking out what we need from the text, applying it to our own lives, and then seeing what we can say about it from our own kind of historical and cultural perspective. So here are the texts that we'll be reading. So in the first term, we start with a short story from Chimamanda Adichie, The Thing Around Your Neck. This is really a diagnostic text just so that we can get a sense, or so I can get a sense of the writing level and the reading level of each student. Our first real novel is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And our final text, which is our final, is All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Remarque. In the second term, it's pretty heavy reading. We have 4 books that we'll be using. Dawn by Elie Wiesel, which is the second installment in his Night trilogy. Before We Were Free by Julia Alvarez. Hairdresser of Harare by Tendai Huchu, and then finishing with excerpts from Tales of Two Planets, which is edited by John Freeman. It's a climate change and kind of cultural understanding or cultural experience of climate change. Our assessments, as I mentioned earlier, The Thing Around Your Neck is a diagnostic, which means that it's really just to get a sense of the writing levels. Our first real essay is an analytical essay from Things Fall Apart. And then our final for the first term is All Quiet on the Western Front. In the second term, we'll have 2 creative writing projects, Dawn and Before We Were Free. And then we will have an analytical multi-evidence essay through Hairdresser of Harare and a synthesis essay that concludes the class with using Tale of Two Planets. If you can see at the end of each term, we'll be having vocabulary and mechanics practices, and that can take the form of either quizzes or it can take the form of group presentations. It's a pretty broad topic, but this is going to be kind of more of the technical skills of the English, at least for this class. So our grading categories, analysis and grammar mechanics comprise of 35% each, which means that it's 70% of their overall grade. So this is obviously heavily weighted towards analytical kind of writing and practice, as well as the grammar mechanics understanding that each student is expected to have or develop. Content, which is basically just kind of general knowledge about each text and kind of larger concepts that don't necessarily deal specifically with the text, but are surrounding the text in and of themselves. The final essay is a separate grading category, and that's going to be 20% of their overall grade. Finally, we have Habits of Scholarship, which is part of their grading category, but doesn't actually have any actual grading weights. And we're fairly familiar with Habits of Scholarship at this point, but this is part of our grading categories. So class resources. All of our grading and assignment lists are going to be accessed through PowerSchool. We've switched over to Schoology this year, and this is going to be where a lot of the resources are going to be pulled from, or at least they'll be housed, including the reading schedule, homework schedule, and other kind of resources that might be applicable to the texts. For me, I personally use Google Classroom for submissions and editing, or I should say, giving feedback for papers. This is just out of convenience. So we will be using Google Classroom so that whenever essays are assigned, they'll be turned in through Google Classroom. I'll provide feedback and return them through Google Classroom. So here's my contact information. Both emails are totally acceptable, but whichever one works best for you. That's it. I look forward to meeting all of you and working with all of you too. All right, have a great one. What's up, man?